Hey, so this time we're going to look at how we can make and input collectibles. So we're going to start with the importing is pretty straightforward. You just click this big old import button here. But before I do that, I'm going to quickly jump across to 3ds Max. You guys will probably be using Maya. And what I've done is I've just made a coin. Nice and simple, nothing particularly crazy about it. I did a very just quick flatten, unwrap, just so I could put a texture on it, and then I exported it as, well, I exported it as an OBJ called coin test. But you can export it as an OBJ or you can export it as an FBX. It's worth noting when you export it as an OBJ, sometimes it changes the rotation of your coin, but it's not really a deal breaker. But I took it into Photoshop to texture it, and Photoshop works with OBJs, not FBXs. So then once you've got that, you can go ahead and create a texture, which I used Photoshop to make my coin texture. And I even made a specular and a normal for it while I was at it. So you can see what that looks like. I can just close this, do that now. And then back inside Unreal, all we do is we're going to click import and find it. So mine's called coin, but I'm also going to bring in my spec, diffuse and normal. Now you don't have to do the extra maps, but I'm going to just show you just in case you want to. I'm going to hit import all. And you can see that's brought in my model, but like I mentioned to you previously, it's brought it in on the wrong rotation because I exported it as an OBJ. There's a little tick box I think you can tick to untick that. It says flip your normals. Let me just show you that real quick. And that should be good. Looks like my computer's just compiling shaders. Give it a minute. Alright, we can save that and close that. So yeah, you can see it's brought through this white texture. We're going to change that in a minute by creating our own material. Let's put this white cylinder. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click in some space and create a new material, which I'll call John Coin _ Matte. And double click enter to set it and open it. Once that opens, you're going to see a viewport that looks like this. Come on, computer. And this is what makes up your final material. So we're not going to do anything particularly fancy with this, we're just going to sort of keep it simple, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my base colour, my normal and my specular. And I might not use the ones, well actually my specular is more of a metallic in this situation. So this is my base colour, you can see it down here. Once I plug that into this, that's going to give me my base colour, and I'll plug this into my normal, and this one into my, what should we do? Should we go for metallic? Yes. And hit save on that. This can take a minute or two. So while that's saving, like I said, I want to show you how to import coins and create collectibles as well. But I also want to tie it to a game mode, so as in if we collect them all, then if we collect them all, it will trigger sort of a win, so we can make a game out of it too. So now we've created our material, I'm going to open the wrong thing. I'm going to open my coin, and I'm just going to drag and drop my material on there. There we go, we've got one John money. And we're just going to save it, and I don't need this white cylinder material anymore, so I can delete that. Save and close. It's ended up quite yellow, and not as gold as I wanted it to, because of our material where I put the yellow into the metallic. But it's fine, I'm not going to mess about too much with that now. Okay, so now we've got that set up, I'm going to create my actual coin itself. And the way we do this is by right-clicking into the space and create a new blueprint class, which is going to be of type actor. So I'll call it coin underscore BP and double click enter. Then I'm just going to drag and drop my coin into my little hierarchy. And as you can see, we've got my coin. Let's rotate it up, shall we? And put it back in place. There we go. That's my John coin. I think I needed to invert my normal, which is probably a bit heavy. But you know what? I've made it now. I'm committed to it. And I closed Photoshop without saving. So, there's my coin. And we can drag and drop this in our world. If we find that coin BP. And get a sense of scale. Scale is huge. Grab my controller, because it's easy to control my controller. So I'm just going to bring the scale down a bit as well on it. Let's go to 0.5. And I don't want my play to sort of hit it. I want my play to walk through it. Because otherwise when we collect and when we do the effect, there'll be a little bit of a jutter. So I don't need physics because I don't want it to bounce on the floor. It's just going to sort of be on the spot and rotate. So when it says collision, I'm going to change it from all instead being block all to overlap all. And I'm also going to add a component called a rotating movement component. And over on the left, we can see our rotating component is going to rotate it on our z-axis at 180. Let's see what that looks like. It's quite nice by default. It's a bit fast, so I'm just going to bring that down. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make a very quick change to this. Instead of this being in my specular, I'm going to put it back in my specular and I'm going to set a full value of 1 on my metallic. So I just held 1 and left clicked in some space to do that. That should hopefully make my coin look a bit nicer, a bit better. So now we have a coin in our world and it looks like a nice metal coin now because we fixed the material on it. And we can run through it. But what's happened is when we run through it, we want to collect it. So we are going to open our player. And in your hierarchy, find your capsule component. And let's scroll down on the right side until we find actor, begin, overlap. And let's cast to our coin. And let's just make sure this works by doing a quick, simple print string. So we overlap, we're going to say hello. Drop my controller there. Let's try that again. So there is no collision we're going through. It's not doing anything yet. So let's have a look at that. The print string is working now, so at least we know the system works. And we can move on to setting up the next parts. So we're just going to delete that print string because we don't need it anymore. We know the system works. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy the coin. So when we collide with it, we're going to destroy the coin. Notice how I'm dragging off the blue side. This is going to directly just reference the coin as the target. I mean, I could have just typed in destroy actor anywhere and pulled it off and it would have been fine. So I'm just going to give us a bit of space. I'm going to create a new variable, which is going to be of type integer. And this is going to be our coin counter. So every time we collect a coin, we want to increase this, and it's going to have a default value of 0. So let's just drag it out and get coins. And we're also going to want to drag out another one for set coins. Now we're just going to do a simple increment, and we could do an increment variable, but we're just going to do coins plus 1. So we're going to get coins, and then we're going to add 1 to that. So when we overlap, we're going to get coins, add 1 to it, and then destroy the actor. So hit compile and save, and let's just give it a test. Let's just make sure that the coin actually destroys. It does. Awesome. Now we don't actually know if our variable has increased, so we're just going to sort of take it on faith for now that it has increased, but we will make a system later on to display that. So let's just organize this a little bit, clean it up. Okay, yeah, let's make the system now. So let's go back to our widgets. If you've not already got a folder called widgets, I just created the content and right click that and create a new folder. But I made a widget previously for one of the other videos. So in some space, right click and create a new widget user interface, which we'll call in-game score underscore widget. And a widget is basically a user interface. It's what we can add information to display and inform the player. So inside here we're going to grab a text block. In fact, we'll grab two text blocks, and we want to rename this one to coins. So we're going to set, so we know what it's going to do. Well, let's increase the size a bit. 36. Actually, let's go a bit bigger. 48 should do it. Now I'm increasing the grab box size of it. It doesn't actually make much difference. It just means it's easier to interact with later on. Don't forget to scale up the second block. Now, instead of this one saying text block, we actually want it to read our coin information. So if we click bind and create a new binding, this is where we can tell it what information to print in this return value. Notice it's pink, which means it's a variable of type text. So let's just drag off here and let's cast to our main character, which is the third person character if we're using the default template. Now, once we reference our character, we can get its variables, and one of its variables is the coins. So let's just get coins and hook it all up. Now, when we're doing the casting, we need to set the object reference, and this can often be a pain in the bum, and sometimes it's just a case of trying a couple of the options and seeing what works. Usually I just type in like get, and it's either going to be like get your play controller, which in this case doesn't work, so I'm going to alt click that one, and let's do a get player pawn. But you need to know usually what you're referencing, like if you're referencing an actor or if you're referencing your save system. But in this case, we're referencing our pawn. So that didn't work because we're not actually we've not actually put our widget on screen. Misclicked this. Okay, let's click on blueprint, open our level blueprint, and add our new widget to the screen. So I've got this timer function here. You might not have that. Again, that was just from a different video. Don't worry about that one. So let's create a new widget. And let's set that widget to our new in-game widget. And I'm going to drag off return value, add to viewport. And that's actually into, so we can create it, but create doesn't actually add it to the screen, but the add to the viewport does. So now you can see in the top left, we have coins. And hopefully, yes, when we walk through the coins goes +1. Isn't that awesome? So if we had a bunch of coins, it would just keep adding to it, and life would be good. So we'll keep going, we'll keep messing with this. I think what I will do next is create a system so if we get 10 coins, then we will win. We'll complete the game. Let's just have a think about how we're going to do that. So we could do this on a tick. We could constantly be checking the value, and if the value is going to equal 10. So I'm just having a quick look around to see if we've got a tick in here. Have we used a tick anywhere? Because you can only have one copy of each event, and it all should work off that one event. No, I don't think we do have a tick involved. So we could create a tick. Thinking about it though, and while we're talking about the event update, the event tick, we kind of actually shouldn't really use it that often, especially for something like this, because that means this question would be asked every single time, like as many times as the game updates, and it's too much. If you have too much on your tick, it does eventually slow your game down and becomes not so useful. So, you know what? We shouldn't use the tick. I mean, you can use the tick. In this case, we've not really got anything else on the tick, so it wouldn't be too bad. But instead, we can actually ask the question once we get the last coin. So once we've got a coin, we can ask it, is the new value of the coin 10 or greater than 10? And I'm going to delete that reference because we've already got it. So I'm just going to pull the reference here. Actually, we're not going to get it from there. We'll get it from after we've set it. So after we destroy the actor, we are going to ask the question, if, or a branch in Unreal, if the coins is 10 or more, if true, do this. If false, do nothing. So if true, we'll just do a quick print string, and we'll let the player know they're a winner. Let's give this a test, make sure it works. Now, we would need 10 coins, obviously. So I need to add some more coins to my game. So I'm just going to hold Alt and actually just duplicate these. If you hold Alt and click and drag off them, we're just going to need 10 of these. So let's collect 10 of these up. Hey, Prince winner. Whoop, 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 whoop. So we don't need that print string anymore. Now we can do all the stuff that would happen on our win. So in a game win, you might want multiple things to happen. You might want new widgets to create. You might want to pause the game. You might want to have like particle effects go off, add sound effects go off. You might want to do a whole list of different stuff when the game wins. So we're going to create a new event. So I'm just right clicking. I'm going to create a new event, custom event, and I'm going to call that custom event win event. And then I need to call the win event. So if it's true, call the event. That means this event will be fired once because we're calling it. And then off this event, we could do all of our win actions. Now, the benefit of using a custom event, I could have just done all this straight after it, but the benefit is you might have multiple win situations, or you might need to call the win event from different times. So once we've won, I'm going to play a sound, and I'm just going to pick one of the default sounds that's already in here with the starter content. We'll just go for collapse 01, I guess. Who knows what that is? And I've already got this windscreen widget that has been previously made. Now, this is just a super simple widget. I made it on one of the other tutorials. All it is just like you created the widget before. It's just a text, and we just need to create widget and add to viewport. And I'm just going to copy and paste those because I'm lazy. Probably would have been easier just to actually type them. So create widget, add to viewport. And then once we get 10, it should say, you win, woo! So it's like I said, it's not a fancy widget, it's just a simple widget that says you win, and then after 3 seconds, so just deletes itself. So don't worry about doing anything too complex there. We could, if you're making sort of a proper game and you're trying to be organized about it, you'd do it on this in-game score widget, and just in this text, in this one, you'd sort of cast to it or call an event on it that would say switch to win mode and do all your other things instead of having 101 different widgets. But for what we're doing, it'll be completely fine just to load up this new widget. Like I say, it's just a win. I just changed the color on it, try to make it a little bit prettier. So we call event, we play the sound, we create the widget, and we add to viewport. There. What should we do next? You know what we should do next? Let's make it pretty. Let's make it have more impact. So we're going to add a sound to it as well. So we're going to collect the coin. Let's add a sound. I'm just picking one at random. I'll just go light 1. Because adding a sound should give it a nice effect. I mean, you'll hopefully have better sounds, like a nice like coin collection sound, or whatever sort of sound you want. I'm also going to create a new particle VFX folder. So just right-click on content and create a new VFX folder. Right-click in some space and create a new particle system. I'm going to call it collection underscore particle. And then right-click again and create a new material. And this is going to be our particle material. So let's open up our material and quickly make this. We're just going to keep it, again, super simple, considering we've not really done any particle effects before. So let's just keep it straightforward. And I'm going to hold 3 and left click in some space to create a color. And I'm going to set that color to white. So mine's not updated yet, but it'll update in a minute. I'm also going to get a radial gradient. So right click in some space and grab yourself a radial gradient. And we're going to blend these together with a multiply. So if you hold M and left click in some space, or just right click and get a multiply and mix those together. And what should happen is we should get basically a white dot that feathers out to black in a minute once this updates. And again, we're just sort of keeping the material simple. Yeah. So there we go, we've got like a little white dot, and the white dot is going to be what would be our particle effect. But if we left click in some space and actually change the material blend mode to additive, what that does is it gets the 0 values, as the 0 would be invisible, so it becomes transparent, and then that sort of works like your opacity. So all the black parts are going to disappear, and it's going to give us sort of this faded sphere. And this is what's going to be our particle. So what we can do now is we can open up our particle system. And at the moment, by default, it spawns these weird sort of crosshairs. So if we click in required, we're just going to work through all of these different parameters. So let's click the material and change it to our new particle material that we created. And this point is going to compile shaders and might take a minute or 2 or 3. Okay, so I just cut that, and now we've got some particles. It looks like little bits of smoke, but we're going to edit this and tweak and try and get something that looks a bit more like a collection effect. What I usually like to do is drag a particle system into the world so I can see it in relation to like the lighting of the world and how it all looks. But I also want to keep my viewport on screen, so that's why I just moved it over to the right hand side. So now I can see it in relation to the world and see it in the preview as well. So next thing I'm going to do is going to ask spawn. And instead of having this constant spawn, you see how it's constantly updating and refreshing. We don't want that. What we actually want is a burst. So we want these to all pop at one time. So instead we're going to want 20 to pop right at the start. And none, well, we could put 1. No, we should probably, that's what happens if we have 1. You can see it's constantly refreshing those. But we probably don't need that. Why is this not bursting? Let's just have a quick look how this one works. The sparks on their burst, because they're using a burst. Oh, it's indeed burst list. That's so annoying. Okay, so let's just go back to as and add the burst list. We need to add an array element. I can't believe I forgot that, but hey ho, at least we know how to fix it now. So you can see now, set to 60, we're shooting a whole bunch of them. So next, let's go to lifetime and add a little bit of random lifetime to it. So I'm going to set a minimum of 0.6, and you can already see how that's sort of taking some effect on some of them. And let's go for 1.8. And again, that's just going to give us a bit more sort of randomness in the lifetime of them. Initial size, again, I'm going to add a little bit of random so they can have a max size of 25 and a min size of 15. So that way they're not going to be all split in the same size. And our initial velocity, you can see these are mostly just going straight up. And that's usually what happens by default. But let's sort of change these so it kind of just shoots outwards a little bit. So let's set all these to 50 and minus 50. But I still want initial up, so I'm not going to set my Z to minus 50. That's just going to stay a positive value. Now I'm not using the color for life because it took ages to compile my shaders before, but if you did want to, you just go to your particle material and add a color for life node there. What we will add though is a velocity of life. So let's click and right click some space and grab the velocity of life, and let's go into our values. And 0 represents our initial speed. So 0 is at the first point, right at the start, the first sort of value. And notice I've set the other one to 0.5, that is halfway through our lifetime. And what we're going to want to happen is we're going to want it to sort of go up a little bit and then drop down. So because we've already got an initial force in our initial velocity, halfway through its life we want to change that velocity to something a bit more down. So I'm just going to mess about a little bit more with the values and try and find a mix that works well. Like I say, looking for something that sort of shoots upwards, like has an initial velocity but then quickly drops. That's looking a bit better. Nice sort of explosiveness about it. Let's go to our required now. Now we're pretty much happy with this, and notice if we scroll down, there's a part called duration. It's set to 0 loops by default, which means it loops indefinitely. So let's just set that to 1. And let's also add a size by life. So right click and grab a size by life, and it's going to work like velocity of life. So we're just going to go into our little drop downs here. We've got our two values, our start value and our end value, which instead of it being 1, so that would be the end, 100%, things like 100%, like instead 80% through, what wants to happen is I want them to shrink over time. So as their lifetime progresses, they'll shrink. And we can see that a little bit, but I think it's, if we make it happen a bit sooner, it'll look a bit better. So if we say to not loop continuously now, just keep having to hit the restart button just so we can actually preview it. I do kind of wish I changed the colour, because white's not very good. But like I say, I don't want to go back into my material now and re-edit it. However, I think for the most part, that's looking alright. If you did want to change your colour though, I'd probably recommend just go back into your material, double click your colour, and maybe set it to something a bit more gold. Because that coin's quite gold, you know. And I think the white won't look as good, but it'll still work. If you want to, you can go ahead and edit that. So let's give this a test. Before we do, let's just go back to our character, because we're going to need to spawn it. So after we play the sound, let's give ourselves some space. We're going to want to create a particle system. So we're going to spawn emitter at location. And let's set it to the one we just created, which is our collection. Now we've got these 3 values we need to set. Well, actually, we don't need to set rotation and scale, but we need to set location. We need to set location. And this is where the effect's going to take place from. Now, what we could do is we could, where should we spawn it from? We could spawn it from our mesh. So when our mesh overlaps with it, we could get world location. But you know what? We don't want it to spawn from our mesh. We actually want it to spawn from our coin. So let's remove mesh and actually let's say from our coin and return that value into our location. Let's give it a test. So it's working. We can see it's working, but our height is off. It's happening from our feet. Oh, why is that happening from my feet? We can see it's working. Let's quickly have a look at what's going on. What we could do is just on our Z, if we right click and split this struct, split this pin, on our Z we could just add, I don't know, maybe 50 height. We could just add like, yeah. But you know what, actually there's going to be a better way of doing this. Let's just open our coin. Let's have a quick look at our coin. Because of our anchor point, you know, you've used anchor point in 3D, the root of the actual effect is spawning from sort of like the root of the coin. So if we go back to our viewport, we can see the coin's actually floating above its root. So if we move that, compile it, and let's don't forget to wire all this back up, and compile and save. We'll need to lift these guys out of the flow, so I'm just going to use my hierarchy and shift click them all and raise them up. And awesome, that's looking pretty good. I mean, I don't like this white, I totally should have done it gold, but I'm not going to bother changing that now. That sounds awful. That sound was just awful. I don't know if that's being picked up on the recording, so I'm going to just change that to something else. And again, hopefully you guys will make yourself a cool, nice collection sound. Look at that, so much better. Do you like my coins? You appreciate how awesome they are. John Money, that's what that is. It's John Money. Cool, I think that's pretty much the gist of everything that we need to do. Like I said, I would recommend changing this to something a bit more gold, because it'll look a lot better for it. Anyway guys, there you have it. That is we've done quite a lot there. We've created a coin, we've imported a model, we've imported materials, we've created those materials, we've set up a particle system, we've created a win game system based on how many collections, and I hope you found that useful and I hope you learned something. Thanks for your time.